a lot of people go sort of wide and far, and they have 20 different services that they offer, and then they end up doing all 20 of those really poorly. And what I'd say is go narrow and deep and focus on that one thing you get paid the most to deliver.
Welcome back. We're on episode 126. Now, I have another guest for you guys. I met in the Philippines at the conference that I've been speaking to you about recently, where I said to you, I'm bringing on a lot of really cool guests. So hang in there because they're coming your way. And this is one of them. So Damien Patterson has a really fascinating background in history. He's actually a former Army officer and war veteran. And from that, he moved into business. As he says, he's more moving into a businessman rather than a technician, because he actually has, I think he says 5 active businesses. You'll hear that as we go through this conversation together. Everything from property to outsourcing to he's a phenomenal business coach and consultant who specializes in operations and scaling as well. And he just has a really great way of communicating and so many fun metaphors that he's going to share with you guys. I can't wait for you to listen in. No matter where you are in your business growth, you're going to find you're going to be wanting to stop the car if you're driving or turning off all distractions and writing some notes, because you're going to want to action this stuff pretty quickly. I guarantee it. I can't wait for you to meet him. Shall we bring him in? Let's do this. Damien, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Guys, okay, this is going to be the coolest conversation. Damien's one of those guests. We were just having a chat and I was like, no, stop, don't tell anymore. I'm going to have to hit record.
Oh, I love it.
Because you don't want all the jewels to come out just to me. You got to share it with everyone else too.
True that. Yes. Yeah.
Cool. So as always, everyone that's listening, I like to start with some really cool, tangible tips. And Damien's like the best guy to give these to you based on what you're going to hear about him coming up. But we'll start with the tips, then we'll get into your backstory and what you're up to these days. So tips, please, share a few tips that you have for these business owners that are listening to the show right now, growing their business, stressing out, going through overwhelming moments. How do they grow it smarter?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think the first thing that people need to really think about is ultimately why are you in business? And the standard answer usually is more money and more freedom, right? That's why people go into business, and then they find it to be the opposite. And the reason why they find it to be the opposite is because they don't have the knowledge and skills and the techniques to actually achieve that, right? So I think first and foremost, you've got to look at a business as an asset that you own, not a job that you create for yourself. So, and from day one, you've got to say, I'm going to build this business so that I never need to work in it. Now, that's an aspirational goal. And there will always be things left to you to do, but your whole goal is to get yourself out of the business. So how do you do that? And then, by the way, that business will be exponentially more valuable because it's saleable if you're not in it, right? So you can sell that business to a hedge fund or whatever, or a bigger business, a bigger competitor and things like that. And you can actually sort of manufacture a lottery win for yourself and sell your business for millions and millions of dollars. And you'll be surprised just how easy that is to actually do once you decide that's something you want to do and you start studying how to do it. So, and the concepts that you need to understand to do it are not that difficult to understand. But I think the first thing is remember that, that your goal is ultimately to remove yourself from the business. And if you do that from day one, if you focus on that day one, you'll do very well. So I had 5 points that I prepared and, so I'll go through those 5, and if you're listening at home, you want to write these down. Number 1 is focus on your most profitable product and service first. A lot of people go sort of wide and far, and they have 20 different services that they offer, and then they end up doing all 20 of those really poorly. And what I'd say is go narrow and deep, and focus on that one thing you get paid the most to deliver, right? Whatever it is, the product that's got the highest margin in it, or the service that you provide that delivers the most value to the customer, and focus on that first, because if you focus on that, your business will be profitable. And growth costs money, right? So if you want to recruit someone else, you want to create systems, you want to pay people. When you recruit someone, that takes time. It takes time before that individual is profitable for you, as in their productivity is actually producing a return. So you have to fund the gap, basically, while you wait for that person to get there. So you have to start on the most profitable thing. I think that's really important. A lot of people wasting time and just go narrow and deep. One of the things, I don't know if you mentioned in the intro, but I used to be an army officer, right? And in the army, one of the
So
things,
cool.
one of the metaphors I use is when you clear a minefield, you don't start at the edge and just roll the minefield back. You instead make a very small lane through the minefield, and you focus on being able to just get a small sliver through so you can walk through, and then widen the lane, right? And widen the lane, then you can get a car through and then a tank through and multiple vehicles through. But you want to get the blood flowing. You want to be able to get to the other side as fast as possible. And in business, what that means is you want to have a full process from start to finish, delivering money and putting money in the bank before you start doing anything else. So pick your most profitable product, map it out from start to finish, and just focus, laser-like focus on that until that's turning over and bringing in the money consistently. Then you can start adding other lanes to the minefield or widening the lane, which is other products and services, and do that. I think that's a really important insight. So if you're listening at home, ask yourself that question: what's your most profitable product or service right now? And just go all in on that until you're making a really good profit. The second thing I then say is write a procedure for everything. Create a procedure for every single step. So one of my favorite exercises to do with my team, and I've got about 60 people who work for me now across 4 different businesses. One of my favorite things to do is to start with big arrows on a map. So you map out your processes with those big arrows, and then you write inside the arrow what it is. So it might be advertise, post the ad online, and then it might be landing page conversion, and then just whatever the whole series is through the process. Map that out, and then create a procedure document for every single step of the way, and that's really important. Now, there are 2 ways that you can create procedures, right? One is that you can write them yourself, okay, which is probably the hard way, right? And the other way is you can hire a VA, okay, and then allocate time to teach your VA what those things are in a recorded session, much like we're doing now, and then say, okay, this is how we enter share your screen. This is how I enter someone into the database, blah, 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 blah. And then it's being recorded. Your VA is listening. You're explaining it. And then you say to them, okay, after this recording, after this session, I want you to create a procedure document based on what I just told you verbally. And then I want you to present it to me at our next session. And then we'll keep working our way through every single step of the process. And that's
Damien, that's
super
smart.
right?
I love that.
Yeah, it's the hard way. There's an easy way and hard way to do it. Generally, all the knowledge is in your head. And the hardest bit is getting it out of your head and onto paper. And the easiest way to do that is a recorded session. They have someone else do the transcription and things like that. So number 2, proceduralize everything, because you can't grow something that's not documented. Because if you want to have 100 employees, well, what are you going to train them all individually, one by one? No, you need to have a manual, and then that tells them how to do it. And you look at all the big successful enterprises in the world, they all have that. McDonald's has the manual. The fries are made the same way in every single McDonald's restaurant. They actually have a headquarters, and they have a training depot, like a training sort of cell or whatever, that write that manual and train everyone to the manual. So very, very important.
Hey, who do you get to actually update those SOPs over time and make sure they're up
Generally
to
in
date?
each business, you've got an operations manager, and that's one of their key duties is to be the czar of SOPs. And so I would do or the general manager, or anyone, your executive assistant. It just needs to be someone's job, and that someone needs to be relatively competent, in it. And one of the things I want to do is I want to get used to say 5 hats, but now say 6 hats made. And anyone, like a set of baseball caps. And when you start a business, you buy these baseball caps. And the first one says marketing manager. And the second one says sales manager. And the third one says operations manager. The fourth one says admin manager. The fifth one says training manager, because you've got to create training systems as well. And the last one is general manager. And then throughout the week, you've got to put these hats on and go, who am I today? And then your goal ultimately is to delegate those hats off. So then the first person you should you should hire is really, I think, a marketing manager, because that's the start of every business process is marketing to bring people in. So, but the realization is that you've either got to wear all those hats yourself, in which case you need to be competent in each of those roles, or you got to find someone else to do those things for you. And until you manage to do that, you don't really have a business. You just have a job, and you're going to
Yeah.
continue to flail around. So focus on your most profitable product and service, create procedures for everything, embrace outsourcing, coming back to that, how you get it done. I remember the very first business conference I went to, our mutual friend Dale Beaumont actually ran it, and he got up on stage, and I'm sure he was sharing a lesson he learnt from others before him too, but he said, look, when I got into business, I was taught, write down a list of all the things you do that you need to do and that you can do. And he said, put the hourly rate that it costs, that you can earn to get to do that task, and then how much it costs to pay someone else to do that task, And he said straight away, once you do that, you'll have a couple of tasks which you earn hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour for, and then everything else will either cost you money, or And he said, just do the top two tasks and then hire people to do the rest. And it was that moment I was like, oh, it's so obvious, So from that day,
I remember that exercise too, by the way.
That day I was like,
I
right,
know,
getting a
it's
housekeeper.
really
Had young children at the time, so I'm like, we're getting an au pair. And so housekeeper, au pair, and then personal assistant, virtual assistant in the Philippines. And then that's how you do it. And when you think about it, the smart thing to do is actually whatever's the cheapest rate. So getting a Filipino VA is probably the number one thing. But before you do that, you need to actually make a list of all the things you're going to give them. So when they start work, you can then train them and things like that in it. And then, so embrace outsourcing, because otherwise you're going to have to do it all yourself. And people forget, like if you spend an hour doing your admin because you like to do your own admin, right, then you're an idiot, because you could be spending that hour doing the thing that pays you a couple of $100 an hour to do, and you'll never get out of the starting gates if you are not willing to embrace a team and delegate stuff to other people, And it's really simple. Some people say, if you want something done properly, you should do it yourself. It's like, just give yourself a slap. If you ever say that, give yourself a slap. No, first of all, if you want something done, the quickest way to get something done is what? Get someone else to do it. That's the quickest way.
Absolutely.
Because if you're doing it, you're going to wait until you've got the time to do it, right? Quickest way to get someone else to do it.
Yeah.
And if you want something done properly, just get someone who's competent to do it, and get someone who's more competent than you to do it. You wouldn't do your own surgery. You wouldn't go to court without a lawyer. So just find someone more competent than you to do it, and you'll get lots of things done.
Yeah, the best managers or leaders are people that find people that are better
100%.
than them in all the different areas, right?
100%. And I think once you sort of the penny drops on that, you go, yeah, of course, do it right now, Go and get it. And anyway, might be a good time to give Smart Workforce Solutions a plug. We'll talk about that later. But the other two things I had was create team structures and career models in your business. So when someone joins your business, they have to see a future for themselves there, right? And if you've only got one station for them, then they're going to go, they're going to do that, and then they're going to go somewhere else because they want to advance. So what you will need to do is sort of paint a picture to them and say, look, this job actually has 5 levels, not 1. And the first level is trainee, and then the second level is junior consultant. The next level is senior consultant, and then we've got management consultant and senior manager, right? So those 5 are great: trainee, junior, senior manager, right? And then you can give them a little table and you say, look, this is the level of pay that you get at each level, and this is the qualifications and experience you need to go to the next level. And then these are the jobs that people at that level will do, And they're so critical to when people join your business, for them to see a future. Otherwise, you're going to constantly be replacing them, and build that up. And then put people in teams so that they're not thrown in the deep end. Like, always have like a senior person who's been with you for a while running that, and then you bring in the new person works under the senior person. You look at any successful organization, they all do that. They all work in teams. And it's like I remember this the story I tell about when I was in the Army, and we had to do a physical training session. There was 150 people in this training session and one PT instructor, one physical trainer, right? And I thought this will be interesting to see how he handles this. And what he did is, the first thing he did is he divided everyone into groups of 3, so he brought down his management liability from 150 down to 50 groups, And And then he went, right, we're going to run the ring road. So there was a circular road through the barracks, and he said, okay, we're going to run the ring road in groups. And I was like, okay. And he said, so start here, finish here. And so then he had full control. Like, he'd just stay there at the start line, finish line. And he said, but the first group back are going to do 0 push-ups. The next group will do 2 push-ups. The next group will do 4 push-ups. And the last group will do 100 push-ups. I never ran so hard in my bloody life, because I didn't want the 2 other people in my team to do more push-ups than they needed to, right? And so when you put people in teams and you reward them based as a team, then what happens is everyone pulls a lot harder, because, you'll let yourself down, but because you only have yourself to answer to. But when you have other people to answer to, you'll work 10 times harder. So forming teams is really critical, I think, in the sense that you get that collective accountability and people work a lot harder when they're in teams. But also when you're the junior member of the team, you get a chance to just be a fly on the wall and learn before you're the team leader, where you're then held accountable for the performance of the whole team.
Yeah, got it. So when you bring
absolutely.
somebody on, let's say you are in a state of growth and you're not 100% you're in that state of growth and you're not 100% like really where that job could potentially go. And you mentioned earlier, map out the future for that potential job. Say there's like 5 different levels, but what if you don't know 100% what's next in that potential role? How do you then get somebody to buy into the vision?
Yeah, I think you have to have a greater vision for the business than where the business is now. So when someone comes in, and then share that vision with those people. So, you might only be one person, you might be 3 people, whatever, you might be 20. But whenever someone comes in and say, hey, listen, we're a growing business and this is our vision. In 5 years from now, we're going to be 5 times bigger. And when we get to that point, we're going to need middle managers, we're going to need team leaders, we're going to need middle managers, the whole thing. And then draw the org chart for what it's going to look like in 5 years' time. And then show them that. And you say, here's the org chart. Right now we only have one team, but we're going to have multiple teams. And, the team leaders, and you might be 2IC of the team right now, but I'm going to raise a second team and I want you to be in charge of it. So first of all, I need you to just learn how to do it and understudy your team leader. And then I'm going to give you your own team one day. And then they go, oh, great. So it doesn't have to exist now. You just got to be good at painting the vision and let them see what you're doing. And, that's enough. Most people are actually excited about that. They want to, the idea of getting into the ground level of the business as well and being part of that story, that really excites people. And rather than coming into a business that's been around for 50 years and there's bureaucracy and a pecking order and people are like, I don't know about this. Yeah.
I'm really glad you said that. That's great advice. So what else? There's another one in there. There's another tip, right? Were we up to 4?
Yeah, I got one more. And one more
What's the last one?
You just got to just be honest with yourself about your own abilities and make sure you are getting coached or trained, both yourself and the other leaders in your business. Make sure that that's happening, because I think the conference where we were at, and I was speaking there, and I got everyone in the room. I said, right, put your hand up if you're a business, if you are the owner of your business and you're running the business, you're in charge of your business. And everyone but 2 people put their hand up, right? And then I said, right, put your hand up if you think you're a good leader, and only like a third of the room put their hand up. I said, right, so 2/3 of you have got a bad leader running your business. And then I just let that sink in for a second, because ultimately, if you're going to hire someone to run your business for you, would you hire yourself? And if the answer to that is no, then you've got a job to do, and that is to go and work on those 6 hats. Learn marketing, learn sales, learn operations, learn admin, learn the training systems and all of that, and the general manager leadership, learn all those things, or hire someone who can do it and get out of the way. And often you can't afford to hire someone because your business is not profitable enough yet. So then go back to point number 1, focus on your most profitable product or service so that you can fund that growth. Yeah,
brilliant. Do you know, I actually remember when you said that to the audience and you're like, then you have a bad leader running your business, and you could hear a pin drop.
Yeah, it was confronting, but true. But
yeah,
true,
it was. But it's true. Like, you have a really great way of distilling down some simple wisdom in a way that people can understand. I love the metaphors you're bringing in from your days in the military as well. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we're going to change gears yet, because speaking of your past, I want to know, earlier before I hit record, you said, my main focus is to not be a technician, it's to be a businessman.
Yes.
So I want to know what the hell that means and where have you come from? So what's your journey to where and what you're doing right now? Tell me the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Okay. So I guess, the brief sort of story of my life is, working class kid from Western Sydney, joins the army, lucky enough to get into officer training. So
Yeah.
had 18 months of training at Duntroon, and then graduated from there. 20 years of age, I'm in charge of 30 soldiers. So I feel very privileged to have had that opportunity. But the army is a very different place than the commercial world because it's not a business. It doesn't do marketing. It doesn't do sales. It doesn't really do budgeting and bookkeeping. Like as officers, you don't get involved in all that stuff. They've got civilians to do that. So and it's not a profit organisation, so it doesn't have that commercial reality of getting things done that pay the bills. So
Yeah.
anyway, then I left. I worked briefly for a property investment company, and then I went and started my own property investment company. So when I was in the army, I was a very successful property investor. So I decided that I wanted to do that afterwards, and that was my first business. And then I've been a serial entrepreneur. That business is still going. It actually got wiped out once. I had to restart it, and that was brutal and educational. But I've done all sorts of
Yeah.
things. I had a boot camp for kids. I had an adventure park that I bought doing vendor finance, and then I handed it back later.
Oh my
I
god.
had a landscaping
Yeah, right.
company. Then I ended up getting rid of that, and I've learned a lot of lessons, both the easy way and the hard way. And the easy way is always better. And the easy way is just to listen to other people who've already done it. Okay, and be careful listening to people who haven't done it, but listen to the people who have done it. Unfortunately, there is a lot of sort of business coaches, inverted commas, who have never actually run a business other than their one man band business, coaching business. And those people, my advice for those people is don't call yourself a business coach. Call yourself a systems coach, or just like pick that one little thing within a business that you're an expert in, and leave the rest. But yeah,
Yeah.
the
Good
I think
advice.
that's good advice. Like, don't pretend to be something that you're not. Just whatever you're really good at, just focus on that. But
I've said on this show before, it's the whole coaching
oh yeah,
coaches. Like you take a course and then you teach it.
some of the smartest coaches I see out there are the ones who coach coaches. The coach for coaches, and I'm like, well, if anyone doesn't need to be convinced that they need a coach, it's a coach. So
So well said. But yeah, I love that you said listen, pay attention to who you take advice from.
yeah,
Really important. Yeah,
I think
keep
that's
going.
important. That's a good way to sort of cut through it all. But anyway, so
Oh
then
yeah.
I right now I've got the prop investment company still. That's a multi-million-dollar turnover. It's got about 20 something staff, and then the second business
Yep.
is Smart Workforce Solutions, which is an outsourcing. So we will recruit and place both South African and Filipinos into your business to help you. Very hard to find high quality Australians with such a low unemployment in Australia, and the labour cost is very
Yep.
expensive. So a lot of people already know about the Philippines, but they don't understand what the massive opportunities in South Africa right now. So smartworkforcesolutions.com.au, give it a plug. And I also have a couple other things. I have a finance company. I have a Airbnb management business, and I also do individual business speaking and consulting, which I just do that for fun. Hey, I really just love helping
Yeah.
people, and so I do speak on stages like when we met, and I can go into businesses and do consulting, either one on one or group training and things like that. I really enjoy that, and I do have up to 5 people that I coach one on one on a routine basis. That's all my schedule allows for. So anyone who needs or is interested in that, happy to consider them. And there's an application.
So what's your area of specialty? Speaking of
Really,
coaching, what do you
well,
excel in?
scaling leadership and scaling
Yeah.
businesses. How to be the
Yeah.
boss of the business, not like I mean I know a lot about I mean I know a little about a lot, but the thing that I really focused on is how do you grow that business? How do you get yourself out of the business? How do you grow it? How do you build the team structures and the career models so people want to stay? how, what should you focus on. I remember watching what's that guy, Gordon Ramsay. He goes into those restaurants and
Yeah.
and he'll go and look at the menu and go, you've got 500 items on your menu, and he'll just rip it out and go, just have like
Simplify.
6 items. That's it, and be really good at those 6 things. And so a bit of that sort of stuff as well. But what I'm focused on
Okay.
now is I'm the CEO of my business group, and as the CEO of that group, I still do a couple of key functions in the property investment group. Like I do the webinar every week that we use as part of our marketing funnel, and I do the weekly meetings for each company. I chair the weekly meetings and give direction and guidance to my teams. But I'm really focused on how I grow those businesses. So my time is spent now reading books about scaling, attending conferences about scaling, talking to people about scaling, just anything and everything that deals with growing a business. Because ultimately, people, if you want to have more time and more money, build a business that you can sell for millions, and then you'll have all the spare time and all the money in the world.
Oh, valid point. How many businesses do you have now as part of your group?
Well, there's five, but
Okay.
two bigger ones, and then the mortgage broking business, the finance business, is basically on ice at the moment because it exists, but
Yep.
we've just found it easier just to outsource that, and I'll bring that back to life soon. The Airbnb management business is in its early days, and we're just really refining. I think whenever you start a business, you really need to just get the business model right before you scale, because if you don't have the business right, when you scale, all you will do is scale your mistakes, scale your problems.
Yep.
So there's a fellow called Ryan Deese, you might have heard of, digital marketer, Ryan Deese. And
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
he
yeah,
talks
definitely.
about the
Yep.
flywheel, and he says that
I
the
remember.
flywheel's, like that heavy wheel that spins, and that's your business process from start to finish, one rotation. And you need to just perfect the spinning of the wheel so that it spins stably. And if you spin it too fast, too early, it'll wobble and shake and fall off and break. And I think that's a great metaphor for your own business. Just get your business process right from start to finish. Test it at a small level, fix those problems, amend your procedures to learn those lessons and make sure those mistakes don't happen again. And then when you get that right, you can then spin the wheel really fast, which is scale a business and service 1,000 customers a month instead of 5 customers a month. And that's a great metaphor. So the Airbnb management company is in that stage at the moment where we're just refining the flywheel. Property investment companies at full
Yep.
speed ahead. Smart Workforce has just come out of the refinement process, and we're now scaling. So there's different stages of business, which is really good. But highly recommend
Cool.
Ryan Deese's stuff as well. I've been really impressed by what I've learned from that guy.
Yeah, Ryan's great. He used to have gosh, the summit. He had the podcast Perpetual Traffic, which has now changed hands, and he had the Traffic and Conversion Summit, which I went to, one of the very first ones way back in the day in Austin in Texas. But yeah, with Perry Belcher was his co-founder of that. So yeah, great group to learn from. So I want to know a little bit around how you work with somebody, specifically a case study. And I'm curious to see where you're going to take this because you have multiple businesses. So which one? Tell
So
me
I'll
more
tell you,
about how you've
I
helped
thought about
somebody.
this, and I thought I've got a great story. One of my friends, who's actually a very successful person in his own right, and I won't say his name because he's a bit of a cheeky fella. But the one of the things that he did in the early days, he made a lot of money from he found a way to hack something, and then
Okay.
made a lot of money from it. And it wasn't against the law, and it was just a bit cheeky what he did. And then he made a lot of money, and then basically he hadn't broken the law, but he kind of wanted to go into something else after that. So he went and bought a business, which was it was a business that specialised in things for people who caravan. So satellite dishes to get TV in when you're traveling around the country in your van or motorhome,
Mm-hmm.
little generators and things like that. And anyway, he bought this business off this guy. And like most cases, when you buy a business off somebody, often you don't find all the skeletons until you're actually running it. And
Mm-hmm.
he'd been sold a bit of a dog. And he rang me up and he said, Damo, he goes, I need a real business person to come and have a look at his business, because he goes, I'm bleeding money, and like, he goes, don't like, and he's a very competent businessman himself, but he said, I just need fresh eyes to look at this because I can't find the thing. And he goes, will you? And he flew me over to where he lives, and he said, just come out, I'll pay for your flights and accommodation, and can you just spend like a couple of days? I'm like, sure, mate, no worries. And I did it as a favor, you know. So I went over, and day one, we got in a room. He had a conference room sort of set up, and I just put the butcher's paper on the walls, and I said, right, let's just go back to basics and and got them all thinking about the right stuff again. And then I just asked a question, and I said, what's your most profitable product or service, And he said, the generators. And I said, are they any good? And he goes, not really, they break. I said, why do they?
Oh,
I said,
no.
why do they break? And he goes, I don't know, I'm not sure. And I said, well, I said, all right, hear me out. I said, how much do you buy these generators for? And I forget the numbers exactly, but it was something like $500 each landed, but you buy them by the shipping container load, right? And I said, okay, no problem.
Yeah.
And I said, well, could we just get some of these generators and run them until they break? Like, just run them non-stop in the car park until they break, and maybe even look at all the ones that have been sent back and just quickly survey the breaking. And then can you get on the phone or even get on a plane and fly to China to the factory and get them to upgrade those particular points of the generator that break? And he was like, mate, that is so simple and obvious, but I never even thought to do it. I just thought that we couldn't, we had to deal with it.
That's
And
how it
so
goes. Yeah.
he went and did exactly that, and increased the landed price to $700 from $500. And then all he did was he used to sell them for $1,000, so he put the price up to $1,200. And I said, great. And then so he went and fixed that, and now he had a good product. And then what I said is, I said, who's your best salesperson? And this guy puts his hand up. And I said, right, give me your spiel when sell me the generator when you sell it in the shop, And they just had a shop front as well. And he got, he started talking about this is the Funkmaster 2000 generator, it does all this. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, can you grab that generator, go down somewhere nice and get down on one knee, and someone hold up an iPhone and just film that sales pitch about the generator. And then I have to put that on Facebook as a Facebook ad, get a Shopify account, start taking online orders. This is ridiculous that you're only
Brilliant.
trying to do retail. You've got the whole world, and we can just send them out. Anyway, so
Amazing.
This was the thing. And then they were good students, they just focused exactly on what they needed to do. And really, when you think about the advice I've already given you, that's a great example, because what was your most profitable product? Focus on that. Fix the flywheel. So the product was breaking, fix that, and then scale it, which was take it online instead of just a retail shop. And anyway, I went back a couple of years later. I was in town for a different reason, and I rang him up. I said, hey, let's catch up for dinner. He goes, mate. I said, what? He goes, yes, dinner's on me. Let's go. I've got so much to tell you. And he told me about how everything went. And he said, we did exactly what you said. And he said, you know what? I already knew that stuff, but I didn't have it in the forefront of my mind. I needed someone else to just remind me of those things. And he goes, we now sell, we now make $700, $500 a generator, because it landed for $700. He goes,
Yep.
we now sell 50 a week, and we distribute all over
That's
Australia and New Zealand.
amazing.
And I'm like, he goes, mate, anything you want. And I said, a Hummer? Can I get a Hummer? And he goes, sure, you can get a Hummer.
Of course, you'd
I'm
ask
still
for
waiting.
that.
I'm still waiting for my Hummer. But but that's the point, and sometimes business is actually really easy. It's right in front of you, but we get so overwhelmed, and we got all this advice coming from different people and the good idea fairies, and you go to a business conference and there's 10 different speakers, and you come home and you're just like, I don't know what to do, And it's actually really simple. Just focus on your most profitable product, refine that business process, narrow lane through the minefield. Don't try and clear the whole minefield. Just get that one product seamlessly pumping and watch the money come in, and then grow your business from there.
God, that's such great advice. Again, you just make it simple to listen to as well. You just don't cut around, Yeah, I love your messaging. It's great. So, okay, Damo, where do people learn more about you? I mean, you have a lot of things going on. So if they want coaching from you, let's start with that.
Well, DamienPatterson.com. That's spelt with the extra I, DAIMIEN, Patterson.com. You can reach me through there. If you want to build a team and you want to get some great Filipino South Africans working for you, then smartworkforcesolutions.com.au. It's an Australian-based company. And if you want to do any property investing, integritypropertyinvestment.com.au. That's a whole nother segment, on the property. But I tell you something, I've made a lot of money in business, but some of the easiest money I've ever made is buying properties in the right locations. And it's not about renovating and all that stuff. It's just about research. Pick the place that's booming, buy a house there, make hundreds of thousands of dollars with little effort.
Could be an interesting chat to have, actually, because a lot of people in business think that's they don't know how to funnel their money from their
Yeah.
business into property and how
Make
that
your
all
cash,
works.
make your cash in business and park it in properties.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
smart. Okay, I love this so much. And one quick question as we start to wrap up, because I have to ask it, I'm sure people are thinking this as well. Why South Africa for the
Yeah, it's a
DAs?
great story. So we all know the history of South Africa, right? And we know that they had apartheid for up until about 30 years ago. And in that is a pretty brutal regime where if you were black or coloured, you were structurally disadvantaged. You weren't allowed to own real estate. You weren't allowed to have shares in a business. You weren't given the opportunity to go to the good schools and things like that. So what's happened in South Africa is obviously Nelson Mandela, was elected, and he's obviously since passed away. But what's happened now is the hard right of the ANC are now running South Africa. And there's a lot of reverse racism going on where they have a quota system now, affirmative action quota system where your workforce has to be racially diversified relative to the country, which basically means about 90% of your workforce has to be black, and then the other 10% can be coloured or white. And so we now have a situation in South Africa where you've got a lot of people who are exceptionally capable, very well educated, but because of the colour of their skin, can't get a job because there's not enough quoted positions for those people. And look, in the big picture, it's probably what South Africa has to do, the same way that we had affirmative action for women in the workplace and things like that. Whether you agree with affirmative action or not, it's really, I think it's ironic that they've now got racism going the other way. But so,
Isn't it?
and then COVID made it a lot worse. So if your company, by the way, is not compliant with that policy, you get fined by the government and you're not allowed to do any government contracts. So you do want to get your company out of that situation. So when COVID happened, a lot of the whites were laid off, and as was everyone. But when COVID passed and they were rehiring, the whites couldn't get their jobs back. So you have a lot of people who have, and of course we don't care what someone's race is in Australia or anywhere else around the world. So it's just there's a lot of people there who are looking to work online now, remotely. So and incredible people. And because of the difference in the rand versus the dollar, and it actually ends up being about at less than half the cost of an Australian. But yet their work ethic is arguably superior because they have 35% unemployment. We have 3.5% unemployment. So they are so grateful to have a job that they will work their backsides off just to impress you and retain their job. And so that's what we found. And I've now got, I think, somewhere between 15 and 20 South Africans who work directly for me, and then a whole bunch of South Africans who work for clients through us. So we employ them, and then they work for the client. They give 95% of their time to the client and 5% of their time to our, team building and accountability type things that we do. And if you want to build a team, talk to Smart Workforce Solutions, because we do everything. We recruit, we train them. We even give you some training, your managers training about how to manage that.
I love that so much. Yeah, you guys, and thank you for sharing that story as well, because you told me that in the Philippines about the country and what they're going through and everything, and I never had thought about the flip side of what is actually happening and how you can find incredibly qualified workers over there. So, but also you did mention to me you train the entrepreneur or the business owner. I think that's equally as important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what happens to a lot of people that fail at outsourcing is because they don't really have the systems in place to manage remote workers effectively. So the process that we now have is we do a strategy session with the new client. And we say, okay, what roles? We go right through your business and identify everything that you can outsource and build job descriptions or duty statements, whatever you want to call them, for those roles. And then we'll go and recruit South Africans or Filipinos to fill those roles. And then not only that will we recruit them, we'll also train them as much as we can before they start work with you. But then with you and your any other managers we have, we then do a thing called remote staff managers training course, right? So we actually train how to manage, like what sort of meetings you got to run, what rules, what agendas, what systems do you need to use, what reports do you get them to make, and things like that. And how do you maintain morale of someone who's working from home on the other side of the world, And all of those problems have been faced by other people and solved. So we just need to teach you what those solutions are, and you will succeed. I remember when I hired my first VA, she sat there for 6 months doing nothing because I was the problem. So,
I remember that way back in my
yeah,
days
yeah.
too.
And then,
Totally. Yeah.
and so what we do now is I just thought about, okay, when I first started, what training did I need so I didn't fail at that, So we offer that. And then we have the third session we do with the client is where we actually go, okay, well, let's talk about your person that we're going to hire for you. What training do they need? And we talk about our training, your training, and third-party training. So say you want to hire a bookkeeper, then we've actually got a training package that we can give a bookkeeper from another country in Australian taxation and ASIC rules and things like that. So we'd get them to do that. You might have a procedure manual you want them to read, a website you want them to read, and something else. And then third party we might get them to do the Xero software course online. And so we put all that together, and then so we'll recruit the person, and then we'll train them for the first couple of weeks in all those things, and they come to work for you, and they're ready to go. So pretty exciting. I'm really proud of it, and we're now rolling that out across the board, and everyone we talk to about is like, wow, that's actually pretty amazing. So because no one's doing that. Yeah, no one's doing that. They kind of recruit someone for you and wish you the best.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's like the Matrix. They're like, "Well, just plug in all the things that they should learn for your company, and then we train you up, and it's like, boom, you're just off and running. It's so smart, so smart. So that's Smart Workplace Solutions,
Smart Workforce Solutions,
.com. Yeah. Smartworkforcesolutions.com
.au
is the URL.
Yeah.
.au. I'm going to say it one more time because you say it.
Smartworkforcesolutions.com.au, Australian company, but we service people all over the world. And yeah.
Excellent. Good. And the property one more time.
IntegrityPropertyInvestment.com.au, and then
and your name one more time for coaching. Excellent. As we start to wrap up, I just want to have you think about the people listening to the show or watching on YouTube or wherever they are in the world. And if you have one last piece of advice that you could give them around overwhelm and getting through the harder moments of business life, what would it be?
Okay, so this is really good. Now, this is what we call the one question. Okay, so whenever you find yourself overwhelmed, you ask yourself this question. Just don't think about anything else. Just go, what's the one thing I can do right now that will best improve my situation? What's the one thing I can do right now that will best improve my situation? Then stop thinking about it and bloody well do it. Just execute, right? And then when it's done, you then might have a break, whatever, then ask yourself the question, okay, what's the next thing that I can do right now that will best improve my situation? And what it does is it just, when you're over, you've got so much stuff, you can only do one thing at a time, right? So just ask yourself, what's the most important thing? What's the thing that's going to make the biggest difference? And in business, it's often the thing that's going to bring in the money. What's going to bring in the most money if I do it? Because there's lots of little things you can do to keep yourself busy and feel like you're busy, but you're not going to get paid the bills, And with money, you can pay other people to do things for you. So what's your usually it's most profitable product, and just focus on that. And so in the military, they teach that as a sort of battlefield survival thing. So you're patrolling along, and next thing you know, the trees are up. You're in an ambush. The enemy's shooting at you, and you hit the deck, and you're like, and you're overwhelmed, right? What am I going to do? What's the one thing I can do right now to best improve my situation? Oh, there's a little ditch in the ground over there. I'm going to leopard crawl over there and get in there so they can't hit me, But I'm still stuck in the ambush, so what am I going to do? Maybe I'll throw some grenades at them and shoot back a bit to get their heads down, and then, okay, what's the next thing I can do? I'll get on the radio and call in for some support. I'm stuck in an ambush. I'm at grid reference 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then what's the next thing you can do? And so on and so on and so on, right? And maybe crawl out of the ambush area and then to the flank or something like that and escape. So, but in business, sometimes you can sit there, and I got another great client and friend of mine who I was coaching, and she had found herself in a really difficult situation where she was in business with her husband, and her husband was really the driving force and light and he was the entrepreneur, and he unfortunately died, and she was left to run the business with and look after their beautiful daughter and to grieve all at the same time, you know. And I said to her, I actually offered to coach her for free when it happened, and I said, look, you know, I've never run a business like yours. I've run a lot of businesses, but I just want to help you, and I think this is the best way I can help you right now. And I said to her, what's that one thing you can do? And then she had a product which was her most profitable product. And I said, just stop thinking about anything else, and let's work out how we can sell a lot of that real fast, you know. And then she gave me the answer, and I said, okay, and we worked that out. And guess what? And then she pulled in like a couple of $100,000 worth of revenue just within about 3 or 4 months. And
incredible.
And just total game changer. Took the pressure off her, but also gave her a bit of a boost as well, that she could do it, you know. And so, yeah, the one question. So if you're listening to this, what's the one thing you can do right now that best improve your situation? Then stop thinking about it and just do it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I reckon you should write a business book called The Simple Things I Learned About Business in the Army. And each page could be a metaphor with like a cute little illustration.
Well, I might just do that, Heather.
I don't know. I'm game if you put it out there for sure. So, wow, that was, thank you. I can see well, first of all, you're an excellent speaker, and that's how I met you, as we said, but I can see how you are so good at what you do in speaking and communications, because it's been an absolute privilege and pleasure listening to you. And I could keep going with this conversation, but I'm going to cut it, because then I'm going to invite you back later for another chat another day.
Anytime. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being here as well.